Happy No Humping Day.
Welcome to GayTalk 2.0, the ultimate podcast for your dose of dish.
Good evening and happy hump day. It is Wednesday and welcome back to another episode of GayTalk 2.0, an LGBT podcast streaming live on Digital Stream Radio, where you can access that live stream usually every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can do so by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. Today, we're going to welcome back Dr. Evan Goldstein from Bespoke Surgical. He joins us for this month's Tales from the Tail. Today's subject is, are we ready to start hooking up again? It's going to be interesting. We're going to talk about it, but here we go. My name is Tom, and I'm your host, and as always, I'm here with my amazing people, starting with the first one.
Hey, y'all, Nick or Trish.
And...
Hey, it's Elsie.
And that sounds amazing. Welcome, everyone, to the show. I was able to actually do a quick run out today and grab Elsie a little care package. So she's got a microphone and all that good stuff on her end. And we're all good. We're ready to have a fantastic show today.
Yeah.
I'm just realizing there's a mess in the background of my pictures. I'll bear it back.
There is. He is the mess. He just doesn't know it yet. So Elsie, while he's doing his thing over there, how are you, baby girl?
You know, standard answer. I'm great. Still employed, still healthy. All of my loved ones are doing well. So
that's important. That's important. Same here. You know, it's we've been cooped up at home. Quarantine is not over yet, and we're still within our confined spaces of our homes, unless we have to go out for something like groceries or some necessity.
Setting up a mic.
Setting up a microphone, all that good stuff. And so, yeah, that's what we're doing. So how are you, Nick?
Oh my God, I'm actually really good. I had a great weekend. So I have been itching to redo my blinds, and I finally did it. I redid my blinds in my living room, and it was actually hilarious because everybody doesn't think I'm a handy homo, but I can hang a blind. I can hang a blind, okay? But all of my neighbors, it was beautiful outside. They were all sitting outside watching me hang these blinds, and I would drop a screw and I'd be like, oh fuck, shit, and they would all just start laughing. So I mean, they came out beautiful. It's great, but it made me really happy to like just do something that I've been wanting to do for a while. And then I think I talked about it last episode that I had a virtual date.
Yeah, you did mention that.
That's right, I missed that.
So we had a virtual date on Friday, but we actually ended up FaceTiming the day before. And then we cooked together on Friday and ate together, and we were on the phone for a while. And then we have FaceTimed every day since. We've watched 2 movies together. You
know what? Go ahead. I'm not gonna make this about me.
No, he's just he's great, but it's so weird. Like I'm literally virtually dating, and he's a nurse, so we actually will talk about it with Dr. G later, but like if he was, quarantined at home or working from home, right. I would probably feel more comfortable, and he would probably feel more comfortable with getting together. But the reality is we really can't. But it's been so great. Actually, right before we started, I FaceTimed him just to, say hi and whatever. And he might be listening. I don't know. But like,
hi, we love you already.
Hello.
Don't fuck it up. No pressure. No pressure.
No pressure.
No, but he's beautiful. He's pretty great. He's super sweet. Got his life together, which is weird. I just want to meet him. Like it's making me crazy.
So the good thing about this is that it gives you an opportunity to really find out that you guys like each other, as opposed to just having the hats for each other, because this forces you to actually share conversation.
Yeah, no,
so it's terrible.
Yeah, or hooking up and, ruining the moment right away like we normally do.
Right, because then he opens his mouth and you're like, oh, wait, he's an idiot?
Yeah, he's not, though. What's interesting to me is, like, I have like we all have baggage and we all have like a lot of stuff in our past, and it takes a long time to work up to talking about that. And like on our first conversation, we opened up so intensely. Like he said some things to me that I was like blown away by, and I like poured my heart out to him, and it was fine, and there was no judgment, and like I think that was like, okay, we're definitely gonna keep talking because
And
it felt great.
you know why that is? It is because the pressure of sex and people seeing all your naughty bits
That may have happened already.
doesn't well, yeah, but it's different. It's different. You can set up the lighting and junk. Don't act like that.
Well, that's true. You can make it look prettier or bigger or longer.
So,
Well,
Angles
I
are
was
awesome.
I was having a shitty day today. I had a lot to do, and then halfway through the day, my internet went out, like completely out, and some guy had to come like fix some like connector, and then I had to call, and I was on the phone for over an hour and a half. Finally got my internet back, and then about a half hour later I got locked out of my email, and I was just stressed out because I'm planning this massive like virtual gala, and I like had I had no connection. And he sent me what would be deemed a very inappropriate photo, and it made my day. Then I was like, oh, I'm not like stressed anymore. Just smiling.
oh, we like
Well,
them already.
Well, it's a good thing for usage on your phone. Otherwise, with no internet connection, you wouldn't have been able to get that photo.
I know. Thank God for smartphones.
I'll tell you. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Can you imagine if this happened in 1996?
Everybody that has stuff against social media has been preparing us for this very moment.
Agreed. I think so. Because we have been able to connect in such a way. Like Mother's Day is next Sunday. I don't even know how we're going to do this. My mother's like, I'm not staying in this house.
I sent a gift.
But your mother's in Florida. Mine's is in New Haven, like 15 minutes away. And she expects me either to come over or for her to come over here, or something needs to happen. But I'm afraid that she has no boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we set something up outside and I put chairs 6 feet apart from each other. She's going to drag that shit and sit next to me and be like, but you're my son and I love you and I don't care. And I don't want that to happen.
That's exactly what's going to happen. My mom is in New York and my dad's still working at 72. Don't ask me questions because I'll go into a rant. But he works for the MTA where they've had a few deaths and several cases. And I'm like, bro, you're 72. What are you even doing? You're exposing my mom. And so now she's not quarantined really, because every time you come in the house, that resets her 2 weeks and we can't even bring her up here for another 2 weeks. And
then if you do, he'll probably come get her.
I just said, don't poke me, Tommy. Like, you're not even trying to help right now.
No, but I get it 100%. My mom's a hairdresser and she went back to work. She went back to work this week.
She's in Florida. Did they open the hair salons in Florida? I thought
they did in Georgia. And my friend is a hairdresser and she's like, I gotta eat.
And I mean, she's not wrong, but at the same time, like, they have my dad's income, and like, it just makes me crazy. I'm like, you are putting not only yourself at risk, but my dad at risk, who has an autoimmune disease, and they just don't seem to get it. They're like, well, we have like no cases in our city, and I'm like,
no confirmed cases.
You have cases that aren't reported,
right?
You think it may be 100 or 150 or whatever it is. It's more.
It's incredible, and it's people stay home. So we had 2 beautiful days in the Northeast this past week, and it seems like all of a sudden, caution to the wind. People just start going out. There's no mask, no social distancing, crowds gathering up and all over the parks and areas. And I'm like, you people are really asking for it. I mean, this is serious. We're going to see a second wave that is going to prolong this even longer. If you want to at least get to enjoy half of July and all of August, stay the fuck home. And maybe we'll be able to do that. Maybe we won't go into fall still quarantined.
Right.
And that behavior is what it's going to get us. It's going to get us an extension on this quarantine, because things are going to get worse before they get better. That's always the case with anything that's related to something like this. And it's just, I don't know, people are just crazy. So anyway, I'm glad that we're all healthy. I'm glad that we're all connected, and we sound amazing, and I love it. And you guys are awesome.
I love how I sound.
So why don't we attempt to get through some of these stories that we have on cue for us for the show? It's 6:13. We have them until about 6:22 before we bring Dr. G on after the break. So Nick, why don't I toss it over to you? Or Elsie, would you like to go ahead and start with your story, even though we don't have it in the notes?
Oh, we're going to just jump right in.
Yeah, let's jump right in right now. Balls deep.
So I have balls, so we've covered that.
Yeah, I know, the bigger ones on the show.
So I have been, like we all have, going through everything watchable, right? And I wanted to comment on how much representation for the LGBTQ plus community there is on TV. It's been a series and movies, and I don't remember if it was a mainstream TV show, but in all of them, there's been great representation for the community in a very normal, here's a couple way. And I have felt it's so refreshing. And I don't know if you guys have noticed that. So I got into, so first of all, I watched last week, what's it called? Madam J.C. Walker, the hair lady.
Yeah, she's the one that invented the relaxer and the hot comb.
Right. So her kid, her daughter, has a girlfriend.
Oh, yeah. I saw that movie. Yeah.
And it was very organic. It wasn't like a big deal. It wasn't a public relationship, but the way that the two of them related to each other was very organic, and it was sweet, and it was, these are the things that couples go through, where I'm going to move to a different country. Well, what about me? And that sort of thing, where these, because we tend to think that the issues that same-sex couples experience are different for some insane reason. And so I thought it was great the way they approached their relationship, where it was just, well, yeah, it's, 1902 and we're Black and we're in the public light because my mom owns a business, so we can't make this public. But the relationship between the two of them was very organic, right? And then there was I Am Not Okay With This. Have you guys seen that show? Because if you haven't, you have to.
No, I'm writing it down though.
It's funny that you kicked off the show with this, because I also have a list of like 11 new shows that are coming up in May that have to do with the LGBT community. So there's a lot of stuff on there, but this is interesting. So you were talking about Madam C. Walker.
Yes, but what I find interesting is, if you have a show that's made by a member of the community, if you have a show that's made for the community, you expect it. And I remember I kicked this rant off with Hans' book that I love. So y'all need to go get it. So
wait, which book?
Free plug, the Dragon Princess.
Okay.
The Dragon Prince. Yes. Sorry, Hans. The reason why I brought this up is because these are not LGBT shows. These are mainstream shows. And the way that they are executing the relationships between same-sex couples is so normative and it's so organic, and it's not, nobody's losing their shit over it. You have two people who are attracted to each other, and that's all it is. So I don't want to give any spoilers. So I'm going to leave it at that with I'm not okay with this, but y'all need to watch. It's a superhero show.
But I think it's amazing that you bring that up, because as a heterosexual female, or homosexual female, male, we're still figuring it out. The reality is, when we grew up, Tom knows,
she's organically fluid.
We didn't have.
I'm gonna have to get me a girlfriend just so I feel included.
You are included.
Bitches
And if you
are
want to get a
crazy.
girlfriend, girl, do your thing. But you don't have to. But the reality is, we grew up in a world where we didn't have representation. The first show that I remember watching that had real representation was Will and Grace, and that was pretty much a gay show. And yeah, everybody was kind of shown in a positive light, but the reality is, if there isn't representation in mainstream media, then there is a whole demographic of people that aren't being represented. If they're not being represented, they don't feel normal. They don't feel like they belong. And I think you're right. I think the way that we see mass media changing, and the more gay characters that we see, even if it isn't about a gay central story, but the more gay characters we see, the more kids are gonna be like, oh my god, that's
okay,
gay, and this is okay, and their parents are gonna be okay with it because they're gonna see it's not about this, it's not about that, it's about really falling in love, it's about meeting somebody, it's about building a relationship.
Right. And what I've had conversations. So I had a conversation with one of my friends when I was kind of polling my friends, because they all have children, and I asked them whether they would be okay with me gifting their kids Hans book. That's really how much I love it, right? And he explained to me, yes, it's my child, and yes, I'm going to love my child, whomever he ends up loving, right? But one of the things that stresses me as a parent is the fact that this makes their life tough.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was explaining to me, and it was actually very valid, because unfortunately we do live in the society that we live. He says to me that he doesn't want for his son, right, to potentially fall in love with the same sex, right, with another boy. But he says that he feels sincerely that part of the reason he doesn't want that is because he wants the best for his son. And I'm like making faces at him like, you're not making this any better. And he's like, and I don't mean it that way. I mean it. I don't want him to have a tough life because society is so rejecting still.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, when I came out, I got the same response from certain people. It's a harder life. And the reality is, they're not wrong, but it's changing. It's slowly changing. And the only way it's going to change is if we continue to have these conversations, because going through high school as a gay kid, no matter where you are, is tough. Coming to terms with who you are, that is a life changer. I mean, like, nobody at the age of 14, 15, or 16 should have to really come to terms with their identity or a part of their identity. They should just be allowed to own that identity. And that's damaging. I mean, like, it is a harder life. So I completely get what Hans is saying. I mean, would I want a gay kid? 100%. But that's beside the point.
I have to tell you that I'm happy in the way that things have evolved. The evolution of gay characters or gay protagonists in films has evolved over the decades. So when I think about movies that I saw that I first saw myself represented, I go back to movies like the Torch Song trilogy or Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Yeah.
And what was very common about these films back then is that you always saw characters who happened to be gay or gender nonconforming or transgender, always suffering, and they were always showing the character from a point of violence or from a point of sex, right? And that's all you saw when you looked at movies back in the 80s, and then you started seeing different films. Then you look at shows like Will and Grace. Now you're tackling normal relationships within gay characters on a show with a different spin and lighter in the sense that it wasn't always so tragic, right? When you think about, movies in the 80s versus shows in the 90s. And then you look at today, the 2000s and the 2010s, and now into 2020, you're starting to see Hollywood, even Disney, start incorporating some very organic, normal relationships that kids go through in high school, or that, people are being portrayed not from a place of tragedy or from a place of sex, but from a place of normal relationships.
Right. And so I was actually having this conversation with our Republican friend. Remember him?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's also important. The fact that the way that that a person is portrayed, because if you see it, let's say you're a young kid and you see someone who is homosexual, part of the community, whatever their self-denomination is, right? And they're always portrayed from that perspective of tragedy, and their life is hard and everybody else is an asshole to them and they just suffer. You're telling that kid, if this is who you think you are, this is what's waiting for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're instilling fear and you're instilling, oh my God, am I then being punished because of how I am and my feelings toward other human beings, you know? And so it's very important. Yes, the community, a lot of the members in the community have gone through unspeakable things that no human being should have to go through for being born the way that they are, right? And so you don't want to, and this is the part of the conversation that I was having. You don't want to take that away. You don't want to take the struggle away, but we also cannot make the struggle our identity.
100%.
So when we move forward and it's normalized and we all stop being assholes about each other, we should not want to hold on to the negativity, to the tragic things that, you know, a lot of members in the community have had to go through, because this is a step forward and this is what we want. We want for there not to have to be a conversation. Like, for people to stop saying, oh, my gay friend Nick. Do you refer to your straight friends as your straight friends? Like, why is that?
You're right.
Some of you might.
Like,
what does that, how is that of any consequence to Nick? Like, I will never understand that. And I feel I've had conversations with members of the community where they're like, well, that's my struggle. And I don't want people to minimize what we've had to go through to get here. And I'm like, right. It is important that we recognize the things you've been through, but only so that we can make it better.
And I think that's a really
make the struggle your identity. That's not who you are.
Right. But I think it's a really good point that you're making. And I know we have to go to break, Tom. I see you itching. But I think it's a really good point that you're making, because the reality is a lot of these shows, and I'm just going to use the example of Love Simon. Love Simon, he had the perfect family. They wouldn't have cared. They would have supported him. But his process of coming out, outside of the fact that it was a little screwed up because of school, was really hard for him. He didn't know how, he didn't know why, when, you know, the process is important for people to see, because a lot of people, even in conversations with my sister, who's my best friend, she was like, well, I don't get why this was so hard for you. I don't get why you're still struggling with some of the stuff that happened back then. And I'm like, because you don't know what that process was for me. And it is a damaging reality. And it really redirects your life. I mean, you have to come to terms with yourself, but then you also have to embrace it in a way that you can tell people, but also move through life in a healthy, safe way as well. Because there are some spaces and places that you can't actually say out loud that I'm gay. I mean, luckily for me, I was like, I'm gay, fucking deal with it. But a lot of people can't do that. And the struggle that we're now finally seeing in mass media will help so many people so they don't feel alone. And I personally think that it'll help with suicide rate, because kids will be like, oh, okay, this isn't just me. Right. A lot of people went through this, which means there are people I can reach out to. There are people that I can talk to and get through this together.
And they'll also see, you guys also please watch Hollywood on Netflix. Everybody do it.
Started it.
That's on my list.
Yeah.
That's on my list of top 11 shows.
So I will restrict my comments about it.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, listen, we definitely need to have go to break. I have Dr. G waiting in staging. And so we're going to play 2 songs for you, come back from the break. And when we do, we have Dr. G. So here's some music. We will be right back.
Yay.
Greeted by a new Paints horizons in the sky that's meant for me, meant for me. Ready now to face the day, done with fears of yesterday. Waited long enough to say I'm on the way, I'm on the way. I believe. I believe. There is more to me than surface. I believe, I believe. Greeted by a new sunrise. Tomorrow's hopes are in my eyes. Paints horizons in the sky that's meant for me, meant for me. I believe in love at first sight. Some things are worth the fight. Some you learn to say goodbye, like letting go. Oh, I believe. I believe. I there is more to me than surface. I believe, I believe. I believe.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from the break. That was Believe, of course, by Going Deeper. And our previous guest, Davis Mallory, who has been on the show before. I was actually having a conversation with him yesterday over Instagram. Such a cool cat, and I really enjoy his music. So thank you for being on our show. But anyway, we're back, and joining us now, once again, monthly. It's like our little appointment that we have with the great doctor is, of course, Dr. Evan Goldstein of Bespoke Surgical. Welcome back to the show, Dr. G. Hello.
Dr. G.
He'll be back. So while he gets his sound going, how was everyone's break? Short, yeah. Well, he was in stage, and I was like, all right, we need to get to Dr. G fairly quickly, so we're gonna play 2 songs instead of 3 today. And so we had a 6-minute break, and it was a little different. So hopefully we got him all set. Dr. G, how you doing? He's working on it. So anyway, Elsie, while he comes back, before we went to break, we were talking about representation, LGBTQ films, etc., and how important that is for us to be able to see that in films. But what I wanted to say in regards to that conversation until we get Dr. G back was that one of the most beautiful things that I'm starting to see in a lot of the films and stuff and things that are happening is the fact that now you're seeing these portrayals in such a romantic, like, comedy type of way, and it's so cool to see. Hey, Dr. G.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you, but I don't hear Tom at all.
Oh.
Can you hear me? Because I got a new mic.
I don't hear Tom.
Oh, well.
That's not a bad thing.
I know, no Tom. I mean, I hear you, Nick. Elsie, do you want to say something?
Something.
Oh no, I can't hear Elsie either. I only hear you, Nick.
Oh my God, I guess I'm gonna have to run this conversation. Now I can't hear Tom or Elsie either.
Well, that's interesting. Well, hold on. Can you hear me now? Interesting. Well, this is the beauty of doing a live show using technology that, you're just sometimes not able to manage in cases like this. So anyway, Nick, why don't you go ahead and do what you got to do with Dr. G? We'll be right back.
No, wait. We hear you, Tom. We hear you now. Now we hear you.
Can
now you hear me.
Can you hear Elsie?
Can you hear me?
Not really. Maybe you got to close out, Elsie, and come back in.
Let's see. Let's try that now. Elsie, can you say something for Dr. G?
Something for Dr. G.
Oh, we're back.
Okay,
All right,
here we
we're all
go.
back. So I fixed it.
I have a new mic, so you have to hear it because I love it.
So, Dr. G, thank you so much for joining us. I know that, it's been challenging the past 2 weeks with technical difficulties, but you know what? We pummel through them like we do, like you pummel through buttholes.
Yes, exactly.
So this week we have a very interesting topic. You know that we're all in the midst of, this quarantine with coronavirus, et cetera. And we're going to be talking about whether or not it's appropriate to start hooking up. So why don't you tee us up on today's topic, and then we'll just jump right in like we usually do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought this was a super interesting tale. 22-year-old verse bottom who lives in Los Angeles with 6 other roommates. Some of them straight, some gay, some not. And what wound up happening is basically the entire house never really met to talk about everything. But they've been following the quarantine. Everybody's been ordering food. They've been keeping the house and keeping everything as sanitary as possible. And then one evening, one of the roommates was caught sneaking a boy in through the front door.
Ooh.
And yes.
Sounds like something Chris would do.
Yeah, well, and what wound up happening is that the person who's my client, he was quite stoned at the time and sleeping and knew that he needed to react, but didn't react. But another roommate did say something and basically kiboshed it and was like, there's no way in hell we've all been as safe as possible. And now you have the balls to do all of this, go fuck yourself. Get out of here. And they got into an altercation. It got really, really super heated. Him and the trick left the house. And they wound up hooking up, whether in the car, whether outside, whether at his house, whatever it was. But then the next day he came back. And obviously people were super, super pissed off that, obviously his actions jeopardized everybody's world, and to the point where some of the people felt very violated by how this was, and they actually left the house of 7 people to figure out another place to quarantine for themselves where they would be much safer. And it just raises a lot of interesting issues that we will talk about. I think that nowadays, everybody's actions have a reaction, and that reaction in and of itself doesn't only affect you, it could affect everybody, especially everybody that's in your house. We all understand that everybody is horny as fuck, and that, and we talk about it in the blog, there's 3 different scenarios of kind of people. There's the ones who actually have never stopped having casual sex, and they're still doing it no matter what, whether people are dying left and right or what. The other is people that are getting super, super antsy and would like to try going out to satisfy, obviously, their needs. And then ones who are not ready to hook up yet, and they're kind of staying put, and slowly we'll see where the world is in terms of opening up. And I think for me, one of the things was, and the reason why I wrote this was, I really want people to think of COVID-19 as an STD. And if we think of it as an STD, because in our world, obviously, if you're going out, you're hooking up and you're engaging, it is indeed an STD, just like chlamydia, just like gonorrhea. Obviously, the key component for me is this is such a great time for us as a community to not only understand COVID, but get evaluated for every STD. Because we know so many people have asymptomatic STDs that if we're quarantined, if we're now saying, okay, we are super, super healthy and ready to rock and roll from a sexual perspective, then the key is how do we make sure that we're completely clean from top to bottom? And that's doing a full STD panel. Obviously, we talk about it all the time in this show. STDs should be screened by oral swabs, anal swabs, a urine check, and blood work. And then obviously adding to that now, 2 specific tests of a nasal swab for COVID-19, that's the active infection, and then whether or not you want to know from an immunity perspective, which is the antibody test.
Now, so
and yeah,
if you have the antibody test, does that mean you can still give the virus to somebody else?
I think that there's a lot of unknowns right now. And that's why I kind of put it in the blog as well that, you know, we're more than happy to do the antibody test. It's just a matter of most people don't know what it means. So whether it's immune, whether you're immunity and you can't get it again, whether you can get it again, whether you could be a silent carrier, I still think there's a lot that's unknown of the antibody testing. And we at Bespoke will do it. And, you know, I found out that I don't have immunity. But what does that mean? Okay, so I haven't been exposed, so I go back to my normal world. But even if you have somewhat positive immunity, I'm still not sure what that actually means. And I don't think you should necessarily change anything that you're doing until more data is out there for us to make sure that everybody is as safe as possible.
So can you talk a little bit about, I do want to dive a little bit more into the story, but can you talk a little bit about what it means to be a carrier versus somebody who actually had COVID-19, knows they have it or whatnot, and then hooks up with somebody? So if you're a carrier and you don't know, what does that mean? How
Yeah,
can
it
you be?
just means that you're not going to have this varying degrees of symptoms. So many people don't have any symptoms whatsoever. And they're walking around and they're shedding the virus and hooking up and playing with people and giving the virus to other people. And so there's varying degrees, people that are obviously on death's door, and then people that have no idea that they have it. And I think that no idea that you have it is the scary part, because so many people are engaging and going about their activities of daily living and sex without a regard for the possibility that they are indeed a carrier.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you would think that they would develop some element of symptoms, shortness of breath, fevers, and then most people would quarantine. And I think, again, probably most people that are quarantined, just like all of us, would be negative at this point for an active infection of COVID. But I tell the people all the time, it's like, you know, someone sent me these sex parties that people are having. I don't know if you saw it on Instagram that a couple people are having these like parties, especially in New York, 20 people, DJ, back to the usual stuff.
Yeah, they're doing underground parties too. Like they're having parties in basements.
Totally. And people are throwing blame, people are judging, which I never want to do. I think at the end of the day, everybody has to take responsibility for their own actions. And no matter what, whether you or I say anything, these people have been doing disregard for a really long time. And that's either STDs or COVID or drugs or whatever it is. And I think at the end of the day, there are people that come to me that completely follow the rules, and then there are people that do not follow the rules one bit. And you can pass judgment all you want, but my thought is, how do we take that behavior, analyze that behavior, and figure out how the rest of us could minimize as much risk as possible in that? So let's take a scenario of 20 guys that want to have a sex party, right? The way that we're going to have appropriate sex parties is if everybody gets STD screening and a COVID test before you're ready to go to that party. So just like when you used to go to
And you bring your papers with you?
No, what
Yes.
happens is, yes, what
You
happens is
should.
the club promoter gets the results, and it gets verified. And so 20 people come into my office 2 days before they're ready to go to a party, and you test everybody and you say, okay, great. And if you're positive, you can't get entered into the party. And there's still going to be a subset of people that may potentially have it that we didn't catch, but at
Or
least
pick it up.
but at least we're mitigating as much risk as possible. Because if you look at people that are not developing any symptoms whatsoever, usually within 3 to 5 days of an active infection, it gives the virus enough time to replicate that people are developing something. So
Right.
if you have no symptomology whatsoever and you go through a checklist of X, Y, and Z, and you do a nasal swab that shows you have no active infection, the risk of you having an active infection and giving it to people is actually super, super, super low. So if that's the case, how do we start to create this type of a model where, and it's going to happen.
So, but on top of that, right? So my coworker, one of my coworkers, her fiance tested positive, and then of course she got the virus as well, and it was like kind of a 3-week window where they were down for the count, and they're still kind of coughing and dealing with it, but her test came back negative, and I've been hearing that there's like this, what is it, 20 or 30% false negatives.
There's definitely some false negatives. I don't think it's that high. It just depends upon when you're catching it. And there's always going to be that risk. There's always going to be that risk. But if you start to look at it and you say, okay, if these people are engaging and having disregard for society, how do we, instead of antagonizing it and shaming it, you could do that all they want, but they're still going to fuck. And so the question comes is, how do we create some element of responsibility? And this is not going to change. This is not going to change until there's a vaccine or a cure. So
Right.
you're talking about months and months and months of people not mitigating risk and going about their business. And so we at Bespoke are saying, well, look, you now need to own up to how you're engaging. And if you're engaging in these behaviors, how do we, as a practice, support that behavior to the best of our ability? We may condone it. Yes, of course we don't. We want you to follow appropriate CDC guidelines, follow appropriate guidelines for your government and city. Yes, but we also are realistic. And this is a community that has always had issues plagued like this, and people have always had disregard and have been fucking through them all, right? And so I think with this blog, I think it's super important. I feel super passionate about it to say, look, nobody's ever judged you in our office. If you're one of those guys at that sex party, just own it and say, how do we now minimize as much risk as possible? And if you're listening to this and you're a sex party promoter, we have really good ways to try to figure out how to do appropriate risk. And we're working with the apps as well to figure out how do you open the apps literally to start for people to start getting back to their desires. Desire wins, man. You know, if you want dick in your ass, you're gonna get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. So I think that there's also another element, it may be personal for you. You don't have to answer this question, but I wanted to ask it. So you're a healthcare worker, you have a partner, you have 2 kids. Are you having sex? And if you are not having sex with your partner, like, what are you doing to make sure that you're preventing the spread of it when you go home?
So I think a couple of things. One is, yes, we're having sex. It's just not as frequent as we would like, just because 2 kids and e-learning and all this other crap going on. I think it's a lot of jerking off between the 2 of us. That's for sure. I think at the end of the day, what am I doing? I'm doing what everybody is doing, which is wearing appropriate masks, wearing appropriate gloves. The second that I get into the house, I just get completely naked and pop into the shower and take all the clothes downstairs and wash it. I do nasal swabs on myself every week or so to see that I don't have an active infection. Right now, the tests are very, very valid. They're also pretty cheap. And you could know specifically, hey, are you carrying or are you not? We got sick in January and February, really, really bad. I still think that I potentially had it at that time, but my immunity and the antibodies at right now are negative for that. And so, with that being said, yeah, we still have a risk, but I think in the office, we're doing a lot of different things. Obviously, we're cleaning the office in a much more stringent way to provide safety. We're also moving patients so that now people are coming in and there's not a ton of people waiting in the waiting rooms. Everybody has to come in with masks as they're entering the office. We do a really good questionnaire, and talking to people when we're confirming appointments to make sure that nobody is developing any symptoms. And if someone does develop symptoms post, we ask people to tell us so we could start to kind of allow people to trace and get people where they need to be. And then also we're doing testing in the office. Everybody that's coming to see me, not only are we doing their anal issues, etc., but I'm also doing STD screening and the COVID for them so that we make sure that everybody has their enough information so that they can get to where they need to be. And everybody's in the same situation that we're in. We moved out of the city. So my kids are in, East Hampton in the suburbs, kind of living their own world in a microcosm with e-learning and only in the house. And it's a lot of changes. It sucks. Honestly, it sucks.
So I wanted to go back to the story that when we started talking about this roommate. He had other people that he lived with. It's already strange enough when you have a roommate without putting the whole sexual part of this equation in it. When you have two different people sharing spaces, sharing the same space. Nick, you have a roommate, so you know how you try to be respectful and say, hey, I'm having company over on such date, and this individual seems like all of a sudden, obviously it had to be under frustration of just needing to have sex, completely through that possible accord that you have when you have to cohabitate with other humans out the door. He threw caution to the wind and just said, hey, I'm gonna fucking do it anyway, and put people at risk. Do you think that desperation plays a part? One's mental health plays a part in allowing yourself to make those decisions that could put others at risk?
Totally. I think, again, I always say that, if you want ass, if you want dick in your ass, you're going to go out and get it. And the desire sometimes goes beyond. Now, who's to say he wasn't doing this the entire time and this was the only time that he was caught doing it, right? And I think even in relationships, some people like in my relationship or others where people are essential workers or going and doing certain things, they're at a higher risk. That some of them are not hooking up and they live with each other, or they've been quarantining with each other and aren't hooking up. And I think that that's where get tested, know that you're currently both COVID negative, come up with a protocol that you're being followed every 2 weeks or whatever it is, and start to engage sexually. I think it's because if not, you're then going to go out of this desperation where all of a sudden you're going to really put yourself at a significant risk.
So speaking of that, actually, that desperation element. So everybody's talking about staying home, staying safe, staying healthy, and there's a part of this article where you talk about the mental health of sex, right? So that's really important to a lot of people. And a lot of people are probably paranoid or afraid. Like, how do people move forward and combat the fact that having sex is literally a healthy thing, and it's a mental health stability thing as well? Like, how do we move forward not being able to do that?
I wish I had the right answer. I think it's going to take time. I think just in anything, like how do you even go to a restaurant and sit next to strangers to have dinner, right?
Mhm.
All of these things play into, people's lives, and obviously they have been completely changed and displaced. I think the key component is sex is super important, and you should be jerking off, or you should be masturbating, or doing whatever it is to keep things going. I think in your relationships, that now's a great time to get in tune with your own ass and your partners, right? And really, really use this time to learn if you always wanted to learn how to bottom, or always learn if you, hey, how do I want to learn how to top, or I want to be a fister, or I want to take things.
Mm.
And these are the times that you could start to kind of dilate and stretch and use toys and play around and really learn how to explore yourself. But I also think as you start to get involved in thinking, okay, well, I really do want to start having sex, or I have a friend with benefit or a fuck buddy that I haven't seen in 4 weeks and I do want to see him or her. How do I go about making sure that we are all as safe as possible? And this is not going to change. And that's why it's like, we could all pass judgment and talk about how these people are really fucking society and not a good way. But this is going to be the new wave. And so we need to start talking about it. And if you think that the FDA and the entire world gives a shit about gays, we have to create our own protocols at this point, because the reality is that we are the minorities. We are not the majority. People don't really, from my understanding, they're not going to throw out a lot of really great protocols for our community right now. And so I'm saying, hey, okay, if we treat this like every other STD and we're on PrEP, and you're doing all the right things as it relates to STD screening, let's just start adding this into the mix so that we all are mitigating as much risk as possible. And we may have to do it every week. You may have to do it every month, whatever it is to make you feel safe, and putting yourself in communities that feel safe. And I have said to the apps themselves, I had conversations with the apps, they have never taken on responsibility as it relates to our community and STDs. They want to make money. They want to put you into contact with all these other people so that you can fuck and get what you want. But they've never looked at STD risk and HIV exposure and COVID exposure and said, hey, you know what? We are going to take responsibility, and we are now going to create a community that is safer. No, that's never been done. And I said, why aren't we verifying people? If you're HIV positive and you're on meds and you say you're undetectable, who the fuck knows if you're really undetectable?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Who knows that you're saying you're immune to COVID? Well, what the fuck does that mean? Now all of a sudden you have these 22-year-old boys coming over and sticking their dick in your ass, and you feel like, oh, I've done service by telling people. Well, that information is useless when nobody's verified that what you're saying is actually true.
But how
So
how how can an app, for example, go through the process of verification? I mean, you're talking about release forms, HIPAA laws, things like that they would require to adjust. I mean, when you think about apps, they're like the bridge, right?
Totally.
Here's how you're going to get to the other side of the road.
Right.
But
And so we have been thinking about, okay, well, from a verification process, there needs to be another party, right? A physician party. And it doesn't necessarily need to show X, Y, and Z results. It just needs to show that someone is immune, or someone is clean of STDs, or someone is on HIV medicine and undetectable. Now, again, some people would be like, this is a totally breach of privacy. And then there's others that would say, hey, you know what? I want to be part of a community that I know who I'm going to be hooking up with is safe and responsible. I would be that person. I would want to know, like, if I'm part of an app culture that's saying we are taking ownership and we are every 3 months giving you data to say I'm negative for all these STDs, I'm on PrEP, I'm taking it, and I am an outstanding homosexual citizen that's in this community, I don't know. I mean, I think that we have to kind of reevaluate everything that we're doing. And right now seems a really great time, especially with COVID, to reevaluate everything we're doing in our community and try to make things safer and a little bit more transparent for everybody to see.
I
Right.
just
And that's actually a very good point, because part of the reason why STDs are so prevalent is because we're not comfortable having those conversations, because we don't. So if I'm the one that's infected, I feel like you're going to judge me. Or if you're the one that's infected, I'm going to judge you. These things happen. You're sexually active. It can potentially happen. And it's not necessarily because you're being reckless. It's not necessarily, you could be with your partner of 20 years and have your partner bring it home. These things happen. But to your point, that it's actually very valid. If we were able to be that transparent, I think it would greatly minimize, if not completely cancel out, the prevalence of STD transmissions.
100%. And I also think that, when you look at the youth and people that are finally coming to say, hey, okay, I'm gay or I'm queer or a lesbian, whatever it is, now they're starting to explore if the standard starts to become this is how we as a community are going to start to create responsibility. There's a lot that we can do with it. And I think that the key component for me is if you're home and you're quarantining, now we can make sure that you're completely STD clear, because there's so many STDs that could be asymptomatic and you don't even know it. And so now, if we have a clean slate and we create some social responsibility within the community, we could actually do a lot of really great things. Stop judging, stop hating, stop shaming people. It's start to look at every subset of our community with an open eye and an open hole, and really start to say, how do we minimize as much risk as possible? And I think that it's such an awesome thing to do. It's just a matter of getting everybody in our community to start looking at things in a different way.
So let me ask one other question, right? So there are a lot of people that are afraid to leave the house to get these tests, right? So is there anything that, like, say, bespoke or your doctor can send you, like a kit, so you can take these tests, send them in and get the results, so you don't have to put yourself in a situation where you may contract COVID?
Yeah, I think that a couple of things. One is that um, obviously, if you're taking every precaution and you're doing what you need to, I still think that the risk is super, super low. And a lot of people are just getting in their car, they're driving to the office, and we pop out and do a drive-by into the car to just swab the nose. Now, over time, yes, I agree. I think that there's going to be a lot of more at home. Once I think the saliva tests gets a little bit better, where you can literally just spit into a tube. Right now, you have to go all the way to the back of the nose, and a lot of people, it hurts. A lot of people would not necessarily get to where they need to get the results that we would need to truly say positive or negative. And I think that, again, that's why people are starting to come through my office, just because they're coming to me with a more semi-urgent type of issues. And that's why we've really started to offer this. But again, at some point, you can't live in your house forever. At some point, we have to start assimilating and figuring out protocols. What's your work protocol, right? What's your home protocol? What's your sex protocol? These are all different things that we all need to think about, because at some point, I mean, you got to live to the best of our ability. And so I think that right now is a really great time for people to start thinking about everything that they've kind of lost in their life because of COVID. And I do think sex is really high up on that list. And how do we now formulate protocols? And there may be different protocols for each, but sex protocols need to be talked about now, so that when we implement everything, that everyone's able to fuck like rabbits, but yet not get sick and die, right? That's what we don't want.
Yep.
So,
What he said.
so Dr. G, you had mentioned that you swabbed yourself, right? How far back do you go in, and how uncomfortable is it? I mean, obviously, I would believe, I'm going to assume that you know what you're doing. Obviously, you're a doctor. But do you really go way back into that cavity?
Yeah, totally. You have to go all the way back. And so what you have to do is, you have to, I tell people all the time to try to breathe out through your nose when the Q-tip is going in. It kind of opens the nasal passages. And if whoever is doing it, you literally just go and hug the bottom of the nose with the Q-tip. If you meet resistance, we usually take it out and try the other side of the nose, because there's usually a deviated septum in people. It's not terrible. I think the reflex happens more when you finally get to the back of the nasal passage. You start to tear up and cry, and it kind of scratches in that area where it's just an uncomfortable, like, you ever get like the sneeze that won't come out, and it's just like it festers and it's just like there.
Yeah.
But you're doing it for a reason, and if it's done with gentle hands, it's pretty straightforward. And you go to the back, swab around for 10 seconds, just kind of in a circular motion, and then slowly pull it out.
Well, it's good we have two nostrils.
It's more of the entrance, the beginning part of it that's more of an issue.
Well, at least you're slowly pulling out. That's very kind of you.
Well,
yes, it's nice to slowly. You got to go in slowly and then come out slowly. You know what I'm saying?
It's funny that
Oh,
you said,
I know. I know.
If you meet resistance, just come out and go in through the other hole, right? So it's nice that we have two nostrils. I wish we had two buttholes. So if it hurt in one, try the other one.
No, you just keep trying in the one, and then we go to Dr. G.
I think the moral of the story is, no matter what hole, just be gentle. Take your time. Ease it, don't go too crazy, and then on the way out, just like be kind to,
and also relax. It hurts less.
Yes, exactly.
That is very interesting. It's going to be very weird to see how relationships and dynamics and families and roommates and things develop or evolve as a result of COVID-19. So I think that
I agree. I think two things I would just add real quickly. One is eating ass. I know everybody loves to eat ass. Eating ass, there has been some talk of the feces, if you are positive, that some element of that could be contaminated through stool. So the CDC has said, please stop licking ass in the interim. With that being said, I think
we can't give blood, but they can say don't lick ass.
They said pretty close, actually, pretty close. I think the key is to just make sure that everything is super, super clean in that area, right? High fiber diet, really, clean yourself. Internally, we speak about, whether if you're using water or using shower hoses, we recommend not douching. But if you are using something like Future Method or something that's going to clean you out and not cause those issues. With that being said, some people are even to the point where they're like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to kiss and suck face or do anything. I'm just going to stick my dick in his ass, right? And I'm just going to fuck, right? And so, again, these are things that we shouldn't be afraid to talk about, to say, okay, what are your sexual desires? And how do we now analyze them to say, hey, you know what? I just want to go, analyze. I think, again, it's like, if you're the guy that just says, hey, I want people to just come in my ass, and that's your sexual desire, well, your risk of COVID is probably quite low if you're telling them to wear masks, and it's like a dump and run situation, right?
Listen.
So again, all of these things, just own what you do. That's all I'm saying. Own what you do, and let's talk about it.
For 3 weeks, I've been having this conversation, for actually 3.5, 4 weeks, with a friend of mine who we've engaged in sexual activity for a very long time now, for over a year. For 3 weeks, he's like, I can't wait for this to over. I need you to come. I want you to. Oh my God, I want to come over. It's like, and so the conversation starts with, I'm so horny, and I'm like, yeah, I know, me too. He goes like, what do we do? And I said, we can't do anything because we can't see each other. We're in quarantine, right?
No, you should parallel play.
So, well, he was like, well,
kids
why don't we
all
quarantine
the time
together? So then he says
Oh
to me,
my God, hold on. Sorry. So the guy that I'm talking to just literally texted me back. He's like, a dump and run.
so listen,
Yes. He's
Yeah, I
coming
guess we're
over
gonna do a dump
tonight.
and run.
so he's like, well, what if I wear a mask, or what if I just come in and cover my face or whatever, and put gloves on, and you just use my hole?
And then it could turn into a whole thing.
So then I said to him, I said, so what if you come over and just stick your butt through the window and leave the rest of you outside, and I can work that way? These are legit conversations that I'm having with my friend that we hook up all the time, and then we're like, okay, oh, next week we're definitely doing it. We're
Dental
putting the mask
dams.
on. Something, but
I could
yeah, I
just
literally
see-
suggested that he
I
put
could
his
just
butt
see-
through my window.
I could just see like someone's ass like in your fucking window, and like, you know, it's unbelievable.
While your neighbors drive by.
That's
I mean,
That's
obviously the
so
rest of his
great.
body would be outside. He can wave to people while I'm doing my thing on the inside. But I was like, we're literally sitting there.
The
trying
blinds
to-
are down, so it's just this guy outside. You can't see Tom.
With his pants down to his knees.
It's. I'm telling you, I kid you
I
not.
mean, please do that.
That's like, yeah, but that's no different than like the railing fuck, you know? It's like you're outside on the balcony and like just slip it in, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we had all of these conversations. Like, what if I just come and I just slather myself in like, what was it that he said? Oh my God,
Like
not
the
disinfectant.
Clorox or some shit like that.
No,
Lysol. No, I figure you wipe off your dick with a Lysol
Purell.
wipe now.
Purell. So, what if I just take Purell and wipe myself all over and just, you know, I'm like, first
Get
of all,
a
if you can
dental dam. Grow
Okay,
up.
this is taking a left turn. So
If
I'm
you
gonna
can-
do a quick PSA before we end this conversation.
if you can find that much Purell, you let me know because I'm there.
So I think a couple of things. One is, you're right. You could even put on like, you could don like a complete COVID suit and just stick your dick out, or cut a hole right in your ass, you know, and then go. So there's so many different things that you could do, and the role play for this is pretty amazing, right?
It is.
But
That's what I'm saying. It could be a whole
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, absolutely. But I think if you have friends with benefits and you're quarantining in your own places, if you both get tested and you're negative, now you're in a situation where you guys can actually feel safer hooking up and playing and doing what you need to. And then you start to minimize your risk, but also analyze, well, okay, I'm going to the office and I'm being exposed by X, Y, and Z. You say, okay, great. How about you get tested once a week, because I'm staying in the house and I'm not getting any exposure. You get tested once a week or every other week. And when you have a negative result, you show it to me and then come on over and let's fuck like rabbits. I mean,
You
there's
get
lots
some
of different
ass.
things to do. Yeah,
That
you get a
doesn't seem
pass.
unreasonable.
No, it
You know?
doesn't. You know, but the thing is, it's like, how do you like? So I think Quest Labs announced that they were offering antibody test, so that you could test. It's like $120 per test. If you're testing yourself weekly, that can become easily an over like $500,000
Yeah.
effort just to
Agreed.
get some ass.
Correct. But what you're doing at this entire time is you're analyzing each week to say, well, I haven't changed who I'm being exposed to each week. And after 2 to 3 weeks, if it's constantly negative, you could probably go out to every 2 weeks or every month and kind of start to really analyze what your life you're living and what that exposure risk is. And the tests are just going to become cheaper and cheaper over time.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be like, you know, you spit in a cup and it's done, and then you're able to kind of go on from there. So I think the take home to all of this is COVID-19 in our community is an STD. Let's get checked and evaluated for every STD now. We don't know about the immunity status. Yes, we can do it bespoke in our office. We're offering all these tests. But with that, as things start to develop, we'll know more on whether or not that helps us. If you're going to sex parties and you're not going to change, then come to the office and let's work with your sex party planners so that we make sure that everybody that's there is trying to mitigate as much risk as possible. And I think right now is the time for you to look at yourself and look at the relationships that you're engaging so that you're able to now figure out how do you engage the way that you want to, but make it safer for not only you, everybody in this community.
That's amazing. Well, Dr. G, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day, of your quarantine day with your family and your amazing boyfriend. You're not married, right?
I don't know.
Partner.
At this point, I
Thank
have
you.
no idea what the fuck we are.
Okay,
Honestly.
so hey, it
Your
works.
person.
Educators.
So
My friend. He's my friend.
My roommate
so is your
Yes.
5
with
years.
whom I share kids.
Yes, we share kids. I live downstairs. He lives upstairs. It's perfect.
All right. Well, I'll DM you later on Insta
So again,
For a dump and run. For a dump and run.
for a
Yes.
dump and run, honey.
so thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you, your partner, and your kids stay safe amidst this craziness that we're experiencing, and we're looking forward to next month. As always, you are a beacon of light. You come in and you just make us laugh and do our amazing little thing here on the show, and we're so fortunate to have you even amidst all of this craziness.
And thanks for doing what you guys do. You know, you guys are putting all this out there, which is awesome. So keep it up, keep safe. And next time we'll talk a little bit about tops and being better tops, but we're also going to analyze Nick's sexual practices and figure out how to mitigate Nick's risk as much as possible.
Nick, I'm going to tell you all
come to the
about
office
parallel
first.
play. I'm going to tell you all about it. You're going to be okay.
All right, guys, have a great night. We'll talk to you
Bye,
soon.
Dr. G.
Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
Dr. G.
Bye.
Well, that was Evan Goldstein. He's
Why
just
does it
amazing.
always come back to me? Why?
Well,
is it always-
because you still have to go get checked and get analyzed by
Hey.
Dr. G. You said you wanted to
Get
do it.
analyzed.
Mhm.
Analyze. No, he knows what's gonna. He knows we're good.
Oh, there's a
no,
lot.
no,
going
no,
on.
no, no, not like that. Oh God, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen. We've got quite a few to go through, and so little time. That was an amazing conversation. See, he always gets us in this mood, right? In this very
Where we all want to dump and
So prior to having Dr. G come on, we were having this conversation about representation in LGBTQ, representation in TV and film, and Mama Kim, bless her heart, I love that woman to death, sent us over a story, and it's about 11 LGBTQ plus TV shows that are here it is. Let me see if I could do it. Did I do it? Yes. So it's 11.
Oh my God, you're screen sharing now. This is like Zoom.
Yeah. So it's
for podcasting.
So it's 11 LGBTQ plus TV shows and
I've
films.
seen them. Oh, Nick, that's what I was talking about.
that you can watch this May. So the first one is one called The Half of It. Basically, it's stars Nancy Drew's Leah Lewis as a smart but financial compromised teenager who agrees to secretly ghostwrite a love letter for a popular jock, only to find herself falling in love with the same girl he asked her to write for. So certainly interesting topic. I would definitely watch it. The next one is Hollywood, the miniseries. Elsie, you were talking about this. I can tell you everyone on social media is going bananas over the show. So apparently,
I love it. Yeah, it's great.
This gentleman here that we see here with the white T-shirt plays Rock Hudson.
Mm-hmm.
And
no, that's not Rock.
No, that's not Rock.
He's not the character. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, so I want to start watching it. It is a 6-episode series that is currently being streamed on Netflix. Watch it because people are saying really good things about it. Another one is The Eddie. It's a miniseries. This one is a little unusual in the sense that they're doing some of the show in English and in French, and it talks about best friends fighting to keep his French jazz club open while he's also trying to investigate, who murdered one of his real dear friends. And so that's one that I think I could possibly watch. The Goldfinch. This one premieres on May 8th on Amazon Prime. And Valerie, season 1 is on Netflix as of May 8th. And The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Kimmy versus the Reverend. That one is May 12th on Netflix as well. And Seberg, God, I hope I said her last name right. Jean Seberg, an American actress who became one of the biggest movie stars in France. Such an amazing character in itself. When she came back to the U.S., she was being investigated by the FBI for her support for local civil rights movements and her controversial relationship with Hakeem Jamal, a prominent member of the Black Panther Party. So I remember reading a little bit about her, but that's awesome. And then, of course, this is for Nick. Ben Platt is having his live from Radio City Music Hall. That one will premiere also on Netflix on May 10th. Netflix is bringing their
I was going to say Netflix is winning.
Seriously. And then let's see what else. We have Homecoming season 2. So originally the original person playing the main character of Homecoming was Julia Roberts. But she won't be returning for season 2. So instead, they brought in queer icon Janelle Monáe, which is now playing one of the lead characters in Homecoming for season 2. That drops on Netflix's, Amazon Prime, May 22nd. And of course, movie coming to Amazon Prime and Hulu.
My
Rocket
God.
Man.
So good. If you haven't seen this movie, you must see this fucking movie. It was so good. Plus, I love Elton John.
And Tiger Egerton. Oh God, he is cute though.
He's all kinds of yummy.
Yeah, he is.
He's sort of in this movie. I don't know.
And Hannah Gadsby, Douglas. This is a comedian. She's sort of kind of deconstructed comedy and came back at it from a different point of view. It's supposed to be getting a lot of. She got an Emmy for it, but this is also coming to Netflix on May 26th. There's a lot more. There's certainly a lot more that we have on Netflix that is LGBTQ plus related. But we'll post this list on tonight's show. It's actually going to be on tonight's post so that you guys can go look it up. But stay tuned for it. Oh, and we can't forget on Hulu, this one premieres in June. June 19th is, of course, Love, Victor, which is awesome. Another show that premiered this past Monday was Camp Getaway with our previous guest, Glenn North.
So good.
The first episode was hysterical. This very next week, it's going to be the Pride episode. They're doing like a little Pride parade at the camp. It's awesome. Wow. Let's just say that was so amazing. The production behind adults in camp and celebrating birthdays and getting drunk and romping around and doing all this thing. Pretty interesting. Bravo is bringing its A game as well.
It was just so good to see Glenn on a.
It was. Oh my God.
Like I'm not a big reality TV show person, but like I was like 100% into it because it was Glenn mainly.
Yeah, but you know,
I mean, it's a great show, but like Glenn, I was like, I think he's gonna make the show.
So the interesting thing is that almost towards the end of the episode, and I don't want to give away too much if you're going to watch it, there's an interaction with him and one of the other guys, one of the other characters. First and foremost, I feel bad for Petunia. That's all I'm going to say about that. And he gets spanked when another character sees him in assless jockstraps. It's hysterical. But Glenn is awesome. He's going to come back and join us on the 25th to talk about the LGBTQ parade episode. So we're super excited about that. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, so am I. It's been a long day.
That was a list. So, Nick, you have an option. You can either go into Mama Kim's Minute or do the other one.
So I think we're gonna jump into Mama Kim's minute today because I wanna end. We've had such a happy show.
It was.
And my story is not very happy. It's kind of aggressive. So I hope people aren't upset that I'm not gonna share it with you, but maybe next week I will. So let's jump into Mama Kim's minute.
Okay, I'm gonna do a timer and 3, 2, go.
All right, everybody. So here's Mama Kim's minute. So stop everything and watch Melissa Etheridge perform a duet with her daughter in their living room. Number 2, for only $125, the White House gift shop is selling coronavirus commemorative coins.
Really?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Number 3, a group is threatening legal action and demanding payment for use of the bisexual flag. Number 4, Ellen and Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade's chat about trans kids will leave you in tears. 5, Joe Biden names gay former ambassador and Obama advisor to a top campaign position. That's Mama Kim's minute, everybody.
And I'll tell you 2 things very quickly. The legal action against using the bisexual flag is just stupid. It's I don't care if you hold a patent for it. It's a goddamn flag.
Also, this is what the fuck. You know what?
Okay.
Thank you for breaking that up. I was about to make a rain fucking fire.
Rain fire, girl. Rain fire.
Rain fire. Go for it.
This is the conversation that I keep wanting to have. Stop making the struggle your identity. Have people recognize a bisexual flag. Have people ask, what is that? Oh, this is the bisexual flag. Well, can you tell me what that is? Sure. Let me tell you what it is. Let me de-demonize it for you. Let's have a conversation about this aspect of the community. And now you fucking taught somebody about who you are and who you are in the community, how the community and society affects you. Stop being a fucking dick. Like, just...
Well, the thing is the person who supposedly created and holds the patent for the flag is now suing this one individual for using the flag in her social media, in performances, etc., and wants compensation.
And
it's stupid.
I can't.
You know, when Gilbert created the LGBT flag, the rainbow flag,
Gilbert Baker.
Gilbert Baker, yes. He did not patent it, and he wanted to leave it so that everyone could have access to it because that's
the point.
Why? Yeah, no, exactly. Why is that? Why do we create a flag that is the rainbow? Because it doesn't encompass any individual race, religion, gender. It encompasses every single color. And if he were to patent it, that would take the reality that it's all encompassing and all inclusive away from it. So I haven't read that article and I don't want to speak to it too much before I get like 5 emails slamming me on the podcast. So, but that is my opinion. I think that flags, if you want to fly your freak flag, if you want to fly your rainbow flag, if you want to fly your bi flag, if you want to fly your lipstick lesbian flag, which I just found out was a thing, fly it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Did you just find out that there's a flag for lipstick lesbians, or that there are lipstick lesbians?
I just found out there's a flag.
Lesbians. There's a flag.
Can I? I know I'm gonna get crap about this. I know it because I get into these conversations with my nephew where he feels the need to explain to me as
and me.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah. This is what I mean when I say that we need to stop creating bigger barriers for society to accept and integrate the community as the human beings that they are. I know. Preach. I get a lot of crap about it. I get a lot of crap when I talk about Latinx. Can't even pronounce it because I think it's dumb. And I had a huge post actually on Facebook about this where I said it's stupid. Because the problem with the way that we use nouns in Spanish is not language. Language is what it is. It is the fact that we're a bunch of assholes and we are ignorant and we refuse to have conversations that come from I'm a human being and so are you fucking standpoint. Because I'm going to tell you right now, nouns in the Spanish language are the least of our problems. And if you're looking to have an inclusive term, you need to come up with something better that eliminates the other things that actually take away from our ability to include the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah, no, Elsie, I honestly, I agree with you, like almost 100%. I think if there was true unity in the LGBTQ plus community, people wouldn't feel the need to have their own flag.
Like,
If
why
there
do you
was
need your
true,
own
if there was
flag?
true
It seems that your
support
struggle is
and true
different than mine.
unity, people wouldn't feel the need, and we could all embrace one flag.
And that's where we need to get.
Well, it's kind of hard though, because
there is a lot of,
there's a lot of stuff going on.
Mhm.
There are a lot of people that are truly suffering injustices, especially in the trans community.
Right. There is that, of course.
The trans community, people of who don't identify or identify as gender nonconforming or non-binary, are finding it very hard to fit in a box, and there is no box. You can't put our community in a box.
That is correct.
So
you can't put
much.
people in a box, though. It's what I mean to say.
So
like, you can't put people in a box. LGBTQ plus,
look,
it's all inclusive.
The rainbow is everything. The rainbow is an arc. The rainbow is a bridge bringing communities
it's also the flag
together.
of Cusco in Peru.
Okay.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
What I wanted to say was that while we want to reach and strive to get to that point in where we are all really appreciating all aspects of our community, it is important not to minimize the fight for inclusion and the fight for acceptance and identity. Because I think identity is very, very personal and very important to each one of us in our own.
Correct. And that's why I felt it was important when we started the show today. And I expressed, let's not minimize the struggles of the community, because it has been really tough. And I cannot even, I won't sit here and insult the community by pretending like I know the struggles, right? Let's not minimize it, but also let's not make the struggle who we are, because we want to get to that place where you're referred to as a person, because these labels continue to be tied into negative stupidity. There's no other word. I try to get a better word, but there's no better word.
No, you're right. I mean,
and it just continues to and also, are you then going to advocate for yourself as a homosexual man or a lesbian more than you advocate for a trans person?
And that's,
you know what I mean?
No, and I think one of the takeaways that I'm taking away from what you're saying is the struggle isn't who we are. The struggle does pave the path that you walk.
Right. The struggle, you want to get to a point where you're no longer struggling. And when you get there, I want you to be ready to embrace it and rest, because you no longer have to fight this fight, as opposed to feeling like your identity has been taken away because the struggle, you've made the struggle your identity, and it's not. When I have conversations about these issues, no, I'm not going to have divisive conversations where I'm putting you in a box and referring to and using the words tolerate and different and we have to be okay because that's who they are. No, I'm going to refer to you as a human being that you are. And we need to at one point, we're going to have to start getting to that point where you're no longer a gay actor. You're no longer a lesbian writer.
It's no longer gay marriage.
There's no longer gay fucking marriage. It's just fucking marriage. The rules are not different. You don't have to check like a special box that says that marriage applies to you differently. It's now federally okay to do that. So can we stop calling a gay marriage? I'm gonna gay marry my partner.
Yeah. That being said, I'm totally gonna gay marry whoever I marry. because
You
it's
are.
gonna be super
That's
fucking
because
gay.
you're like super gay, right?
And I'm
But,
going to be
Yeah.
like,
but that should
getaway
be your
car.
choice. That should be your choice.
Yeah.
Is
I'm
my
gonna come in
choice.
on a white goddamn horse, motherfucker, and Tom's gonna be in the parking lot with his car in case I need to run away. All right.
All right. Well, listen, we have a couple of more minutes before we wrap this up. So why don't we jump into our Gay Talk term? I'm going to toss that over to Elsie. Elsie,
I totally love it.
so, you know, it was a very appropriate one to choose this week. So why don't you tell us what it is? So before we go there, our Gay Talk term, of course, is brought to you by
GayRealEstate.com.
That's a hot mess. We're going to have to stop doing that while we're not in studio.
I know. Black.
But anyway.
You guys were delayed. Were you trying for me to catch up? Okay. Yes. Gay Talk term of the week. It's Holy Week. It's an extended period of time when one abstains from having sex. In a sentence, I'm starting on my Holy Week today. We're getting hit with a dose of quarantine. So
that's real.
Yeah.
It's real. So we were talking about that frustrations of being locked up and right?
Tell me about it. I am frustrated.
8 weeks for me and I'm going bananas.
Listen, very quickly about Nick's frustration. Parallel play. Kids that are about 3 years old learn to parallel play where they're still very into themselves, but still want to feel the community of playing with other children, but they want to play with their separate toys while they sit close together. See where I'm going?
Pretty much what I'm doing right now.
So basically,
yes, but you can be in each other's presence while you play with your toys.
Okay, all right. On this day in gay history, of course, brought to you by
I'm trying to help you out.
All right, so today, term, when? May 6th, 1868. Where was it? It was in Germany. What was it? The first time the term homosexual was written down. So I can't pronounce the name at all, and I'm not going to try. But he used the term homosexualism in a letter to Karl Heinrich Ulrichs. He derived the term from Greek homos, the same, and the Latin root sexual. I feel like I just read a thing from my big fat Greek wedding. You give me any word, and I tell you how it goes back to
Greek.
Greek.
Give you its Greek root.
I'll give you homosexual.
Good for you. That was awesome.
Homos, the same.
I cannot. Oh, Lord have mercy. Well, it's that time. Ladies and gents, thank you so much for joining us. If you love the show, make sure that you go subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcasting service. By subscribing to our show, you get the latest and greatest of our amazing craziness delivered right to your favorite device or web browser as soon as our episodes are published. You can also support us on Patreon, which is a service that allows you, our listeners, to support the show with a monetary donation. Those donations are collected monthly and can be in any denomination of $1 or more. Elsie, you want to go or should I?
I'm okay. Next week. Did I miss? No, I'm good.
Yeah, you're good.
Next week, we welcome Adafe Okporo. Hope I'm pronouncing their name right. A gay refugee from West Africa living in New York City, who will join us to talk about his journey to the U.S. and what it's like to be gay on that continent.
That's going to be an interesting conversation.
Yes, I am super excited about this.
Yes,
100%.
So, it's been a long time coming. We talk about a lot of international things that happen all over the world, specifically Africa, their views and things that are happening to our members in our communities there. But we've never had anyone that can actually firsthand talk about or talk to what it's like to go through that process. And so I'm super excited for it. Super stoked for next week.
100%. All right. So thank you to our guest, of course, the one, the only Dr. Evan Goldstein, for joining us today. All of his contact information and his post will be available on our post this evening.
That's right.
Guess what? Don't forget, you can get your discount today for the Future Method. Each time you clean out with water or enemas, delicate tissues are harmed and cells are damaged, increasing chances of injury and or STDs. The first of its kind doctor-developed formula that gently cleanses before you play without hurting your bum. And now you can use use code GayTalk20 for 20% off, valid for one purchase or on a subscription per person.
So this is a really good way to, get your tush clean, nice and safe. So make sure that you go get it. Elsie, would you like to go?
Put a rubber on it?
Yeah.
At this point with coronavirus, we should just wrap the whole thing up with cellophane, then put a rubber on it.
Seriously, swab ourselves with Clorox.
Open the window, wrap yourself in cellophane, put a rubber on it, and go to town.
Yes. Which brings me to you, Nick. All great ideas.
Or you could just stick your butt through the window and let someone work at it, and
I'm
then
getting him a dental dam. He's gonna be okay. I care. Remember, our show is available on our website, gaytalk20.com. Under shows and episodes, it is also available as a free download on iTunes, Google Play Music, and Stitcher Radio.
All right, so Nick announces you can find us on social media, Facebook, GayTalk 2.0, Instagram, GayTalk 2.0, Twitter at GayTalk20. You can email us at gaytalk2.0@gmail.com. Tom, take it away.
And if you need to reach out to us, just head on over to our website, click on the Contact Us tab located at the top of your web browser. There you can leave comments, suggest topics, submit a question for the cast or an individual host. You can also call us on our Gay Talk hotline, 334-GAY-TALK. If you need those digits, it is 334-429-8255. Don't forget that we do stream live every Monday, except today. Today's Wednesday, hump day, at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can access that live stream audio by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. Ladies and gents, thank you for joining us. That is our show. Y'all have a good night. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gay Talk 2.0. Tune in next time for more dish.